Hello and welcome to episode 275 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham. This week, big oil's behind much of the opposition to offshore wind in the United States. In fact, they're using environmental laws against clean energy, which is funny because I don't remember them cleaning wind turbines off of ducks after the Exxon Valdez disaster.
New research suggests that riding a bicycle could reduce your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. Meanwhile, it has also been proven that riding a skateboard is still considered cool.
The Canadian province where Brian and I live is attempting to take us back 150 years as they plan to keep burning coal till my kids are middle-aged. To hell with the planet, to hell with my kids' future on that planet. But wait, not so, says one of our listeners who is actively suing the government in power. If that fails, we can try to build a giant time machine so we can take the whole province kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
New research suggests that riding a bicycle could reduce your risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. Meanwhile, it has also been proven that riding a skateboard is still considered cool.
Oh, that and more of this final summer edition of the Clean Energy Show.
Yes, summer has come to a close. It is the dog days of summer, I guess they call it. We've gotten some nice weather finally here right at the end.
I got one more kick at the pool, Brian. It's going to be 30 degrees for 3 or 4 days, so they say, although they're not great at forecasting.
Yes.
And then it's over.
So hopefully those solar thermal heaters you have should get your pool. So your pool's still not really up to the temperature you like.
Not yesterday. It got up to about 81. And I will go in if it's hot out at 82 this year because I'm desperate. But usually I'd like it around 86.
You like it nice and
warm.
Kind of like a hot tub.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we had a nice end of summer party. So we did something similar last year, and I mentioned it on the show. Last year was my 60th birthday, and we had a party. My partner threw me a party at the Hotel Saskatchewan last year, and we hired a band, which we'd never done before. We hired Last Birds, and they did an amazing job last year, and it was so fun to have dinner with our friends and hear some amazing music. So we thought we'd do it again. We rebranded it as the Brian and Toby Summer Dinner Party because I don't really want to celebrate my birthday every year.
No one does after they're 21. That's about it. Then it's like depressing.
Yeah, so we had like an end of summer dinner party, and I just have to say a thanks and a shout out. M. Greiner flew in from Ontario and played some songs for us. It was amazing. What did you think, James?
It's ridiculous, Brian. It's like surreal, and I have to wonder if it actually happened because you know me. I sit at home all the time. I don't fine dine like you. And I had 2 helpings of the food because I had to. It was so damn good.
Yeah.
I'm not used to eating good food. I'm used to eating fast food, and it was so good. And there was a buffet.
Yeah.
And M. Greiner, which I love M. Greiner. I mean, that's stupid that you got her for a party and flew her in from Ontario. Come on.
Yeah.
Did that actually happen?
Yeah.
And she's sitting like 10 feet away from me when she's performing and interacting with me because I'm a loudmouth. When I go to these things, I in order to suppress my introvertness, I become extremely extroverted.
Yeah.
And I'm turned on by, being on as a comedian and just trying to, I don't know, I get really tired after these things because I'm so tense that my muscles are all tense.
It's your coping mechanism.
Sure.
Because, yes, I think you're an introvert, and so it helps to, I guess it's like you become the opposite of that for an event like this.
Yeah, especially when I'm not exposed to the public very much anymore since COVID. Yeah. It's been like sort of derailed a lot of my social outlets. So
Yeah. But yeah, huge thanks to M. Greiner. Huge thanks to all of our friends that came out. Last Birds came out and joined us as well, and I think they enjoyed the show as well. Mike from Last Birds went up and did the Aussie part. R.I.P. Aussie. M does an amazing cover version of Crazy Train, and Mike contributed to the beginning of that. That's, M has just an amazing catalog of her own songs and does amazing cover versions. It was just ridiculous. I think everyone was blown away.
And, she was in David Bowie's band for a couple of years and was friends with him. Yeah. And the Canadian media turned to her when he passed away. And she told some stories about David Bowie, which was just insane at a friend's birthday party. Like, I don't roll in those high circles of people who are exposed to legends.
Yeah.
But that was cool. And she also collaborated with Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield when he was on the space station, and she had to get Bowie's permission to do Major Tom, a version of Major Tom, because they didn't. Yeah, and she talked about how when you send an email to the space station, NASA has all these rules. You cannot upset the astronauts.
yeah, that was funny. I enjoyed that.
Or they'll eat each other. I mean, what is the possible outcome that I'm not knowing about there?
But yeah, she did a bunch of the production work on the ground for that version of Space Oddity that Chris Hadfield did in space, which became a viral sort of music video at the time with millions of views. The first music video in space. So just she's had an amazing career, and that she would come and share.
And
a
wonderful person, as near as I can tell. And she was very chatty. I appreciated the fact that she would talk and tell stories. A lot of performers will just go up and have a wall between them and the audience, but not her. And I really appreciated that. And then people got free discs and LPs and things that were signed by her. Brian, if every night was like that, I wouldn't appreciate it. But once a year, it's the best day of the year for James. I'll tell you that much.
So fun.
My partner was very upset that she could. Yes. I wasn't allowed to talk about the food. She shut me up when I was starting to talk about the food because she went to a family reunion in Saskatoon, which was the one date that I had blocked off on my calendar for the whole year, and you had to pick that date. But she went up there, and I'll talk a bit about that. But they had like buns and it was like a bad country funeral. It wasn't great, but
there was a couple of friends that couldn't make it. Stephen Hall, who might be listening to this podcast, couldn't make it. Stephen, I regret to inform you that you missed an incredible night.
You did. So did everyone else. But we also had some listeners to the podcast who are friends of yours. One was from Toronto who showed up because one of his parents is ill and he was in town. Dawn, hello. Shout out to you. And some other people who support the podcast were there. And one woman who I can't remember her name. She's from Saskatoon. Do you remember her first name? She's not listening. I know that. But she's from Saskatoon. She sat at my table and she said, I've listened to your podcast. And I listened to a lot more than I thought I would because it's very techy. I didn't get the jargon and I'm not interested that much. But because you guys have chemistry, I listened to a lot more of it than I thought I would.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, it's one of those insult compliments.
I have, I don't ever really tell any of my friends to listen to the podcast because podcasts are so specific. Everybody has a different favorite podcast because there's just so many of them. So I'm never insulted when somebody says, they don't listen or they listen to it once because it's not for them. Not everyone's interested in the same kind of clean energy topic.
Yeah, but it does remind me of the problem that we have. Because I know now, after 5.5 years, we've gotten to know some of our listeners, and they tend to be very smart people in very smart jobs with smart educations, and they tend to understand the technology more than us a lot of the time, of course.
Yes.
But we also want to bring in people who don't understand it. We don't want to be too jargony. We do want to explain things, and that gets tedious for people who either already know or became knowledgeable because of the show to have to re-explain what a kilowatt hour is. But you're going to find me doing that a lot today because that's just the way it is.
It's hard to find that balance, yes, of maybe repeating things or dumbing things down too much or smartening things up too much. But hey, we do our best.
So my partner went to Saskatoon, which is 2.5 hours north of us, and we have to understand that most of our listening audience is not in our country or knows where that is. And even if you're in Toronto, you probably don't know because you're ignorant. Sorry, Torontonians, but you're self-centered. It was a big deal for her because I had to cancel because of your party. I wasn't going to miss that and be like Dawn or not Dawn, but Stephen.
Stephen, yes.
I had to go. It was just not something you could miss. There'll be other family reunions. Sure, some of the people will be dead, but, this is only going to happen once. And by the way,
you made the right choice.
With your party getting bigger every year, I think there's a trend line where you're going to be becoming like a concert promoter in 10 years. And you're going to be like shirtless with a cigar at the back of, Woodstock 2035, dealing with the toilet people to empty the portable toilets or something and yelling at them. I just can see that vision now.
Yeah.
Just on the trajectory you're going because it's getting bigger every year.
The next fire festival.
Yeah. So she had to go up there and we realized that I've done all the driving or most of the driving and our kids have done driving. And she has just become unaccustomed to driving on the highway. The muscle just hasn't gotten used. So she was kind of anxious about that. And she was anxious about the charging. And I was a bit anxious because I wasn't there. I wasn't there to monitor everything and to know. So we did some practicing and stuff. And there was a charger halfway, which she might have used because it was a high wind situation. And one of them was broken. And I looked at it on Twitter and I found that it was broken possibly since last November, or at least since April, according to the archives of PlugShare, which is an app you use to check out whether chargers are working, how they are, and all that. It's also very expensive, and I pointed that out on Twitter when I asked the Riverbend Co-op, who I did a commercial for once, a joking commercial, because I was so happy that they were supporting charging in that very important spot in our province. And they said that this power company has high demand charges. They wrote, our Davidson EV chargers come with very high demand charges from the power supplier. Even so, we are committed to offering EV charging. To help the service be sustainable, we are shifted from time-based pricing to charging per unit of energy, which is good for me because I charge slow.
Yeah.
If I charge slow, I would take a long time, and if you charge me for the time, it would be expensive.
Yeah, sometimes, especially when EV chargers first came out, they would often charge by time, like by the minute or by the hour. But yeah, the better way to do it is by the kilowatt hour. And slowly this is sort of shifting, and that's becoming the norm. So yeah, that's good that they do it per kilowatt hour.
So one was working, but I was keeping an eye on it because you can keep an eye on whether they're used or not through various apps.
Right.
PlugShare does it, and the Flow app, which is the brand of the charger. I have both those apps, and I could see that it was getting used, and I didn't want it to be used when they got there. I wanted everything to be perfect. And it was used, but then it was unused, and she pulled in, and she was with her great aunt, who is something like 85. It was originally a birthday party for her and her twin brother, who's 85, but they didn't want a birthday party like you. They wanted they turned it into a family reunion. And she ended up, after a while, after they had enough charge, she decided, I'm going to get some ice cream. And she did. And her whole mood for the whole weekend flipped by having that soft serve ice cream at the co-op gas station there. And she was just so happy. And she was looking out, and there's pictures of this, and she's looking out at the Tesla superchargers laid out next to this non-Tesla supercharger for people like me, and somebody was icing it. And so Janice explained what icing was to her aunt, my aunt, and she was kind of interested in that. She says, oh, really? And then she was, she knew we drove an EV. She got rides on our EV, but to see actually how it worked was a eye-opening experience for her.
And of course, icing is when somebody parks a gasoline car in front of an EV charger and therefore ruins it for the EV people who can't charge if your gas car is parked there.
So we EV types call ICE vehicles, internal combustion vehicles, ICE vehicles. So it's just short for internal combustion engine. And that's what it was. So yeah, it worked out fine. And as she was coming back, she was using a better route planner with a dongle to sort of see what the accurate range would be, and it showed 12%. So she didn't have to stop in that stop. And unfortunately, she was coming back Sunday night when it was very busy. Everybody else was doing the same thing, and it was used. So I phoned her. I could see her on the Chevrolet app. This is kind of funny. Exactly her situation approaching, and I phoned. And as soon as I phoned, I said, don't stop. And it was just in time not to stop because she just passed the charger after that. So she didn't waste her time stopping. So that helped it go smoothly. And she ended up getting like 15% charge when she was here. She still had lots of charge left. And there was no charger at the hotel. This was the big argument that we were having for weeks now is like her sister booked a hotel months ago. And it didn't have an EV charger. She didn't think, let's book a hotel with an EV charger because my sister has an EV. She didn't think that. She's from Alberta. Didn't think that at all. But my wife wanted to spend every second she can with her sister from out of province, and her sister from out of province may not feel the same way. I don't know, but there's just not that urgency from that end. So yeah, she ended up booking the same hotel. You had to pay for parking. It was kind of an issue because they got back late. And then she ended up not seeing her sister at the hotel at all. So there was no point in going to that hotel. Then it was a big deal. Well, I got a charge. So I'm trying to make things smooth. So I find some chargers that are next to a stacked pancake house.
Right.
Now, that's a place where the family went after a wedding last summer in Calgary, and everybody seemed to love it.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, why don't you go for breakfast with some of the people at Stacked Pancake and you can charge?
Nice.
So she did, but it was an issue because, got there late and she charged there, worked fine. I actually started on my app. I had everything. I had a control center going here to make everything done for her, which you can do with today's technology.
Yeah.
Started the charger immediately. She ran off and everything worked. They ended up, getting almost 100% charge there because it was there for a while. And I was surprised because these were shell chargers, which nobody likes. And they often, in the past, haven't worked. They were busy. They were full sometimes. There was all 3 of them were full.
Yeah.
And so that worked out fine. And I'm still working on my air quality project. I want to have an air quality monitor that has volatile organic compounds that come from, say, the refinery down the road, because I'm very worried about that. And I can't find one that will do the job for me. The air gradient one does, but it's too techy. And you have to buy all this equipment. You need to be a gadget nerd and be able to do all this stuff that I can't do. And it's for a different person than me. It's not a out-of-the-box solution.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to turn off my fans. And I can't. The Purple Air Flex does not seem to have a smart home integration. I could be wrong, but everything I've read about it, I need something to warn me that the air is turned, because it can turn on a dime and become very, I assume, toxic from what I've read comes out of that refinery. And I'm just worried about that.
Yeah, so air quality monitors, they're fairly easy and obtainable to get, but VOCs are one of those things that's more difficult to monitor, I guess. So that kind of solution, for whatever reason, just isn't here yet.
Unless you're spending $6,000-$10,000 on a professional one that they would use at the refinery. Right. I don't know that it's going to work out, because they call it experimental. The ones that do have the VOCs say they're experimental.
Right.
And like my Amazon one that I got for $100, although it's on for $65 now, it's an indoor one. It just does an index of VOCs from 1 to 100.
Right.
But, Brian, that works for me. I don't need to know. It works. Like, it will turn off my fans and warn me if I ask it to, if the air quality turns bad. The problem is I need to put it right by my window to get the air before. I don't need my house to fill with this crappy, deadly neurotoxins before it turns off. So I need it outdoors. So what I'm going to do, at least for the interim, is I'm going to set up a rig where, you remember I said that this air quality monitor has a tripod screw hole in it,
Right.
For whatever reason, maybe it's for the potential of mounting it on a wall or something. Anyway, I'm going to mount it upside down under a flat board under my deck that I have for my pool, which is pretty high off the ground, so there's no splashing. So I built a small little deck so I can get into my above ground pool, and it's about 4 feet off the ground. And underneath that, I'm going to put a piece of plywood to protect it from precipitation. I don't know how well it's going to do, but it's not the most expensive thing in the world if I can get another one for $65. And I don't know how well it's going to work in -40, but it's not always -40 here. And my windows are closed when it's -40 anyway, so it's not as big of an issue. I do want to know what's going on. It will give me an index. It will show me the pattern of it, but it doesn't distinguish what VOCs what, because there's toluene and benzene and all these things that are toxic, but it could be other things too. So, I mean, I can't legally prove anything with this, but I can understand it. And believe me that there's this guy with his weather stations in northwest part of our city is called Northwest Regina Air or Weather or something like that. And he's got a great online resource with the air direction, because it gives you a heat map of where the air direction has been, the wind direction.
Right.
So you can see not where it is now, but where it has been recently and where it mostly is. And I can tell from looking at that when I'm downwind from that refinery. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's when the wind calms down at night and is variable that I get the dose just as I'm going to bed. So it's not funny, because I have neurological problems. They could be from that. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. But I will keep everyone updated. And we still have the Clean Energy Show air quality monitor that does parts per million of particulate matter, which is something you'll find in smoke. Less so from refineries, because they tend to filter it out, I'm told now, that they will filter out the particulate matter, but it's the gases that'll kill you, and that's what I'm worried about.
Well, speaking of neurotoxins, I have good news for you, James. This is from Clean Technica and new research suggests that riding a bicycle is incredibly good for your health. So this is from Harvard Health Publishing, and they write, exercising regularly, every day if possible, is the single most important thing you can do for your health. In the short term, exercise can control appetite, boost mood, and improve sleep. In the long term, it reduces the risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, dementia, depression, and many cancers. Human mental health may also benefit from cycling, as described recently by some new research. Previous studies have reported the health benefits of cycling, including a decrease in an individual's risk of developing specific illnesses. Now, a recent study has revealed that persons who use bicycles as their primary form of transportation may be at a lower risk of developing dementia. Cycling was associated with a 19% reduction in dementia and a 22% reduction in Alzheimer's risk. The mechanism, as reported, may be from the active exercise while navigating and balancing.
Interesting.
Upon examining brain scans, researchers discovered that cycling and cycling in conjunction with other modes of transportation were associated with minor increases in gray matter volume.
I like gray matter.
That makes your brain bigger, James.
Good.
Gray matter volume.
I need more brain.
Increase in gray matter volume in specific brain regions such as the hippocampus, which is critical for memory. There were no brain anatomy effects documented by the research for driving or non-active travel. So they seem to have proven this. This is good for your brain.
Now, I started exercising in the late 90s, and I knew all of this except for dementia. That seems like a new dimension to this. Is, mental health and heart and stroke and cancer, yes, but dementia is something very different now that's being added to the mix.
Yeah. No actual difference in your gray matter volume. I'd never even heard that term before, but I guess that's crazy. That's great news.
I need more gray matter because there's so much information to do this podcast that I'm finding I'm running out of space.
Yes, my RAM is full. I'm getting a RAM full memory error.
I can't do long division anymore thanks to this podcast. It's completely full up for other things. Well, it's interesting. Exercise is a golden pill that fixes a lot of things, almost everything, if you can do it. And if you can't, then maybe just walking. Walking is good for you too.
Walking is my main source of exercise. Try and do it every morning. And yeah, cycling in the summer when I can.
Now, I wonder if you rode a unicycle, if you'd be even a less risk for dementia.
I imagine that's probably a brain exercise just in itself.
Yeah. So that guy on the unicycle, annoying as he is he's not going to get dementia, and that's going to make it even more frustrating. So there's offshore wind, as we've talked about on the show, offshore wind opposition in the United States, as there is opposition to anything good these days. I'm shaking my head. It's just ridiculous. I can't read the headlines anymore. But it's tied to big oil. Now there's a new study coming out talking about that. The east coast of the United States has some of the strongest and most consistent winds anywhere in the country. So it's a huge resource, and it's, of course, cheaper than other forms of electricity, except solar sometimes. But since it's more consistent, that is a good thing, too. It can happen around the clock. Studies show that tapping into that resource is essential if the U.S. wants to meet climate goals, and currently they do not.
They do not want to meet them, but,
They don't acknowledge that there is a climate. They don't acknowledge that the Earth is round. I don't know what's going on. Projects like the Vineyard Wind and South Fork Wind projects are already delivering electricity to homes and businesses on the East Coast. But there's a big problem. The industry is getting bogged down in court. Okay, so who's taking these people to court? Is it environmentalists? No, it's not.
Yes.
It's big oil pretending to be environmentally concerned.
Yes, and there's often been misinformation about, it's bad for the fish or something like that, but that has all been disproven. So, maybe in the past there might have been an environmentalist concerned about the fish, but that is not a concern.
Since 2020, when big oil became concerned that maybe there's going to be some competition for something cleaner that might save the damn planet, dozens of lawsuits have been filed against offshore wind projects in the United States. In 2024 alone, at least 8 major cases were launched. And most of these lawsuits get thrown out by judges, but they still succeed at slowing projects down because the legal system don't work that fast. Everything's slow and costly. So every delay adds costs, scares off investors, and sows doubt among the public. Many of these lawsuits claim turbines will kill whales, destroy fisheries, or hurt tourism along the coast. But the science, as you said, Brian Stockton, tells a completely different story. Federal research has found no link between offshore wind and whale deaths. In fact, the biggest threats to endangered North American right whales are entanglement in fishing gear and collisions with ships. And nobody's saying, stop the ships, stop the fishing. But wind farms, yes, stop those because we don't like those. And oil has lots of money to sue. So offshore wind farms are not doing it. So what's really going on? A new report from Brown University's Climate and Development Lab mounts out 5 major legal networks driving much of this opposition. That is 5 networks of law organizations that are tied to guess who. They found that some of the lawsuits are less about protecting the environment and more about using environmental laws to stall renewable energies. Here's the 5 networks. Marzullo Law, Washington firm with long ties to fossil fuel companies, now representing multiple anti-wind groups. The Texas Public Policy Foundation, a Koch brothers funded think tank that represented commercial fishing groups, tried to stop the Vineyard Wind project. They told the fishermen, the fishers, the people, that it's going to harm your fishing, so they get on board. They lied. And the Heartland Institute and CFACT, a well-known climate denial groups, now suing to block Virginia's coastal Virginia offshore wind project. That's what it's called, the Virginia Offshore Wind Project. And also other groups as well, representing Fisheries Survival Fund and the head of his historic connections to the fine organization company ExxonMobil. And finally, Cultural Heritage Partners, a law firm arguing that turbines damage tourism. And the views from wealthy coastal communities. That's debatable, because some of them are so offshore that you can't see them or you can barely see them.
Yeah, I vacationed in Wales and I was thrilled to see the offshore wind turbines. It's, it's not everybody thinks it's a bad thing to see wind turbines out there. And of course, yeah, most of them are so far out, you can barely see them anyway.
So even when these lawsuits fail, and they usually do, they succeed in slowing down clean energy. And that's the bigger picture here. Offshore wind isn't just about battling the elements out at sea. It's also about battling powerful interests in the courtroom from big oil. And those delays could make it much harder for the United States to hit its climate targets if they even want to try. In the future, things are slowed down because of evil. And that is a constant theme on our show. I mean, if they got out of the way, if politicians weren't ignorant, if people weren't ignorant, and they just got out of the way and let the economics of clean energy go, it would be a lot faster in the United States as it is in many other parts of the world, going just fine, thank you.
Clean energy is not only cleaner, it is generally better and cheaper. And sort of further to this, there's a story from Electrek this week. This is an update on the tax credits for our American listeners, because, of course, some of those are coming to an end earlier than they were supposed to due to the current U.S. administration. So rewiringamerica.org is the place to go for this information. And we've talked about them before. They're an advocacy group that is spreading all kinds of information about how people can electrify in their lives. And they have all the rebates listed on their website. And most of them are expiring sooner than intended at the end of this year. So they have a new fall campaign called Save on Better Appliances, and this is all on the Rewiring America website. As we've mentioned before, the EV tax credits in the U.S. are ending at the end of September, and a lot of the other ones are wrapping up in December at the end of 2025. So there's a full list of all these on the Rewiring America website. So this campaign, the Save on Better Appliances, it runs through October. And it includes a central hub where homeowners can learn about the expiring credits and check out which state, local, and utility incentives there are, and find contractors through them as well. They have some weekly drop-in Zoom sessions with certified electric coaches. I'd never heard of that before, but it can help to have somebody coach you through the process of electrifying, because there are things to know. So they have Zoom sessions, contractor tools, including their contractor finder, which is going to be integrated with the Better HVAC directory to find some trusted installer options, and a single project personal electrification planner to help homeowners map out common projects like heat pumps, energy audits, and electrical upgrades. So Rewiring America, they're not going anywhere. They will continue their work into next year, even though a lot of these rebates are ending. But they do amazing work. So if you're in the U.S., if you're interested in possibly taking advantage of some of these tax credits and rebates while they're still here, definitely go to rewiringamerica.org. And they have got all the information there. It's great.
Yeah, for the love of God, if you're going to buy an EV in the United States, now is the time. And you know what? There's probably some deals out there, too.
Yeah.
There's probably some Costco deals with like an extra $1,000 or $1,200 off. There's probably some end of model year clearouts that you could get as they bring in new models for 2026. Yeah, now's the time because I don't see it coming back. Well, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the United States, but it could be at least a few years before there is anything. And they may never come back. 4 years from now, maybe the EV prices are stable enough that you don't need any incentive. Brian, it's time for an old feature of the show, the tweet of the week. Yeah. Yeah, I know it's called X now. I acknowledge that somewhat, but it's a tweet. This is from Stanford's Mark Jacobson, who tweeted this thought experiment. The world needs around 8.6 terawatts of annual average end-use power by 2050. So why do we need all that? End use means that everything's going to be electrified in a climate-fighting world.
Yeah.
So things like cars will be electrified. You'll come from clean electricity, from renewables. Things like home heating will not come from fossil gas. It'll come from heat pumps, powered by electricity, powered by renewables. That is the idea, and including industrial processes like factories that use energy to make things. All need to be cleaned up, but that's going to require a lot more power than we've already used. And on top of that, data centers, AI, all that's supposedly taking more power, crypto. So if this power were produced by, let's say, PV, which is photovoltaics, which means solar panels that produce electricity. So lots of solar panels. And let's say they have a capacity factor of 20%, which means if you get a 100-watt solar panel, overall, it's going to give you about 20 watts in a 24-hour period on average. That's what that means. So if those solar panels have that capacity and can output 43 terawatts of PV with nameplate capacity, which means like it'll say a 100-watt solar panel on a package if you go buy one in the store. That's what a nameplate means. Yeah. Same for when you put 1 million solar panels on a big open area in a desert somewhere. It's the same thing. And he says, well, at 6 cents per watt, that is a price. That's how we price solar panels, is per watt of electricity that it outputs. It's only 6 cents per watt for new Chinese solar panels. And you can get them on Alibaba for that cheap, even now, as a homeowner. And he says that's only $2.58 trillion to power the world. Now, of course, that's ignoring the cost that you need to buy batteries to store that power at night and inverters that convert it from AC to DC or back and forth, and labor to install and all that stuff. But for the panels themselves, it's $2.58 trillion to power the stinking world. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. And we're not going to do that. We're going to mix in wind, nuclear, and other things, and existing hydro. But yeah, if you wanted to power the whole world, you could do that with $2.58 trillion. And that $2.58 trillion is only 2.3% of the world GDP for 1 year. That's just 1 year. Yeah. Because remember, after you put it up, you're done. You don't have to pay for fuel. The sun is free. And so that's 2.3% of the world's GDP for 1 year. But over 25 years, say that's about how long the panels will last before you replace them, that's only 0.09% of world GDP per year. So 0.09%, like less than 1.1% of GDP to solve climate change. So it's the stuff we talk about from day one on the show, and people just don't get that.
2.58 trillion, sure, that's a lot of money. But when you talk about the world economy, no, it's not a lot of money. $1 trillion is mentioned in, country budgets all the time. Everyone's, most of the major countries in the world, they're operating on $1 trillion of budget. And those are amazing numbers because 2.3% of the world GDP for 1 year. Like it's not that much money.
let's get into the mailbag.
Listener mail, letter from Pierre. Hello. Following a request in one of your recent podcasts, I wanted to share how charging works in Europe. We also have free apps and charging cards that aggregate different charging providers for electric vehicles. For example, there's ChargeMat, Fresh Miles, Shell Recharge, ChargePoint. But one of the most useful tools is an app called Charge Price. You simply enter the charging station you want to use along with the percentage of charge you plan to add, and the app calculates the cost with the different charging cards you own. This way, you can always choose the most cost-effective option for charging your session. Cheers from Pierre. Thank you so much. We love to hear what's going on in the rest of the world. We don't always know everything that's going on in Europe. Obviously, we try to keep tabs on things, but yeah, that's great to know. They're just basically a little bit more advanced in Europe in terms of these sort of third-party type charging networks.
Yeah, in North America, it's been a Tesla game for, they've been first to the market and dominated the market. And they have their own supercharger network on highways where you can, and in cities where you can charge. And that's all you people with your Teslas like you, Brian, have to worry about is just going to the Tesla network. But we're starting to see, like Europe, a lot of non-Tesla EVs on the road. And I certainly saw a great deal of them in Vancouver and in the greater Vancouver area on the west coast of Canada. And it was very interesting to see all those people. But then for people like me who has a non-Tesla EV, you have to worry about the different brands because there's not just one network for non-Teslas. If there was, that would be great. But I also use Tesla. I've used it on my trip.
No, and the one problem that comes up occasionally is you might be somewhere where there's no cell service. You can't get a signal on your cell phone. So how do you get the charging started if it works through a cell phone app?
So here in Canada, I managed to use basically just the Flow network because the Flow will start a BC Hydro charger. It will start a ChargePoint charger. It will start a Shell charger now as well, although I opted to use my app just to make sure. But I had a little credit card that you can use from Flow to hold up to the machine with a chip in it that will start the machine as well. That was the backup. So yeah, and I put out a request to say, this is what it's like in Canada. There is ChargePoint and other things as well. But sometimes the networks sort of overlap. You can use one to start other networks as well. So they all team up to do that. But it's not perfect, and it's getting better. And I predict in a few years that, they're working on an open protocol in North America so that you could just plug in and charge no matter where you are, and it'll read your car. And once they standardize that sort of communication between the car and the charger, then everything becomes super easy to do, and I can't wait for that day to happen. But right now, I've got a folder on my phone with all these different charging apps, and I have managed to do pretty well, though.
It gets better every year, but it never moves quite as fast as we want it to.
So we've got some letters held over from last week's, and this one goes way back to when we were recording the show in late July the last time, so it's really held over. This is from Glenn, who's a local listener to our show and supporter of our podcast because he contributed greatly to the Clean Energy Show Air Quality Project. He says, I hope you're enjoying your vacation, James. My summer plans were cut short by the decision of the provincial government here to extend the burning of coal from 2030 to 2050. They were supposed to get rid of it across Canada by 2030. They've had that deadline for some time, and they said, I don't think there's anything else other than coal to burn, so we're just going to, instead of setting up solar panels in one of the best countries in the world, the best areas of the Northern Hemisphere to do it, we're not going to do it. So he says, I have devoted the last 6 weeks to voluntarily organizing a new court action for climate by asking the court to judiciously, I can say this most times, I promise you, I can't, asking the court to judiciously review the coal decision. So we think the decision is unreasonable and unlawful. I agree. We will be in court for our first appearance back on Tuesday, August 12th. Had I been around, I might have gone to that. I think one of these days I'm going to show up in court and see what's going on there. He's got some more information and some links. He says, all the best. Glenn, Glenn Farms, he does a lot of things. He's an environmental lawyer. He's a hero to me. I think this is one of the people doing such great work that where would we be without them? So in June 2025, the province that we live in here in Canada announced that it would continue coal power generation all the way to 2050. To hell with anything else. They don't come out and say they don't believe in climate change, but they really don't give an F about it.
Yeah.
So even though it had previously promised to end it by 2030, the CPJ and co-applicants are saying no more coal power in Canada. They have a youth climate activist who I think is 12 years old. And Glenn, if you can put me in charge with her or their parents, I would like to. I'd like to talk to a youth climate activist one day, and we don't do a lot of interviews, but that's on my my wish list. I would like to, because they're the ones that really hit me when they stand up for the environment, because it is truly their futures that are getting wasted by these irresponsible adults. The co-applicants are saying no more to coal power in Canada. We must do the following: defend democratic due process. The decision lacked public consultation. That's for damn sure. Adhere to Canadian and international law. We have obligations under the Paris Agreement and the Federal Clean Electricity Regulations Act. Uphold Canadians' charter rights. We have a right to security of the person, including the future generations and youth. Preserve the integrity of the Earth's climate. Canada has a historical responsibility to stop the ongoing climate crisis. And Glenn, we are honored to have you as a listener to our podcast. 15 young climate advocates aged 8 to 17 on Friday sued the state of Wisconsin in a related story over its pro-fossil fuel policies. The lawsuit was brought by two nonprofit law firms who have previously had wins in Montana and Wisconsin that we've discussed earlier in the show. There's a story on The Guardian about that.
Yeah, we love legal action like this because, I'm not a big fan of whining and complaining. And we certainly, do our fair share of it here on the podcast. And especially in this social media era, getting online and whining and complaining about things is one thing. It's often a necessary outlet for people because there's so much to be outraged about. But this is concrete action that people can take to make a difference. So, yes, thank you very much, Glenn, for doing that. We support you wholeheartedly. All right. If you want to contact us here, it's cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail, speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. And of course, our Patreon page, which has additional content, and you can join and support the show there if you wish.
Yeah, if you join our Patreon today as a paying member, you get access to exclusive Patreon episodes, and you can support us for as little as $1 a month. And Brian, climate anxiety is real, and especially real for youth and young people. But the solution, as I've said before in the show, and other people have realized, is actually doing something. So if you can do something, that anxiety is relieved. So I put solar panels on my roof. You put solar panels. We drive electric. We advocate, obviously, for clean energy stuff. But thank you to everyone who listens to our show and all of you who support our show. Coming up next, the lightning round.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. That's ziprecruiter.com/zip. ziprecruiter.com/zip.
It's time for the lightning round.
The Lightning Round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy and transportation.
Green power surges in the second calendar quarter for the United Kingdom, up 195% from the same quarter last year.
Wow.
That's the output of green power into the grid, up a whopping 195% year on year, 1 year later. Solar generated 33.6% of Greece's electricity this July. Wow, 33.6% from solar. It increased 31% compared to a year before. So that's already pretty high a percentage of the grid, and it's up that much. And it's quadrupled since July 2020, so they are going hard. Solar and wind provided 48.7% of electricity in Greece in July, almost half from solar and wind alone. Now, a nuclear proponent on Twitter, or X, asked, what did it generate in December? You know, just kind of, the weakness of solar is December. It certainly is here.
In the Northern Hemisphere, for sure.
So therefore, you need nuclear.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the Saskatchewan government is saying here. But the answer was 13.2% of the electricity in December, with solar and wind generating nearly 40%. So that's not 50%, but it was 40% in the worst month.
Yeah.
So solar alone is expected to be as much as 50% of their power grid by 2045.
Yeah.
Just every time I read that, it makes me angry about our own local policies. Air pollution from oil and gas causes 90,000 premature U.S. deaths every year, says a new study that is talked about in The Guardian newspaper. 90,000 people dying. Yeah, that's a lot of people. Unnecessarily. China's electricity emissions fell 3% in the first half of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. Now, some U.S. petrostate politicians, including those around here in Canada, say China isn't building wind and solar. They don't care. They have all this coal. But the generation of coal is becoming less and less part of the mix. China will build more solar this year than the total in all of the United States.
In 1 year.
Ever.
Just this year.
In history. They will. Just this year. So batteries now meet 20% of evening peak electricity demand in California.
Yeah.
That's almost a third from batteries. When everybody comes home from work, turns on the air conditioners and the ovens and everything else, and computers, not just for a single day, but that's averaged for the whole month of June.
All that solar collected during the day, and then a lot of it discharged with batteries in those peak evening hours, which is great.
Now, that is a statistic that would blow the minds off of most people.
Yeah.
To think that a battery, they would say, well, a battery, what's that going to do? And even the power company here makes fun of the batteries on the grid, the tiny amount we have. But a third of evening peak electricity demand is not from natural gas turbines, which are like jet engines that fire up on demand when people increase the electricity demand. These are coming from batteries, which store up solar all day and then disperse it in the evening when you need it.
Because they're really big batteries.
In the last 2 years, companies scrapped enough wind, solar, and energy storage projects in our neighboring province of Alberta, Canada, to theoretically meet the province's entire power demand. Yeah, so they scrapped clean energy that could have met their whole stinking power demand. That's from the Pembina Institute, which is based in Alberta. New analysis from Stanford University, 100% wind, water, and solar. When we say wind, water, we mean hydro, usually existing hydro, across all U.S. energy sectors will occupy about 56% less land than current energy. So if you went to 100% just wind, water, and solar, and everybody's freaking out about, that takes up land, would actually use 56% than the current energy of fossils and nuclear, which use 1.1% over 1.1% of U.S. land. Corn for ethanol uses 1.24% of U.S. land, which is not great. Solar has been installed on less than 0.05% of farmland in the United States. The highest projections for solar by 2050 are that it would be sited on about 10 million acres. It sounds like a lot, but it's just equivalent to 1% of farmland. And we're going to need less farmland, I'm telling you.
Yes, the physical footprint of fossil fuels is huge and, generally speaking, bigger than what we would need for clean energy.
As we have alternatives to dairy and meat, especially dairy. Dairy's for sure, because it's actually happening. We're going to need less farmland for agriculture in North America, so it's not going to be a big deal at all. It's time for a CES Fast Fact. A solar PV panel, that's a normal solar electricity panel, provides 20 to 25 times the energy as land with a bioenergy crop on it. So if you have ethanol coming from a crop, so you can make a fuel for a combustion engine, it requires 20 to 25 times the energy from a per land use, per square whatever of your land. The solar panel is 20 to 25 times more than a crop from bioenergy, which are highly criticized now. Once were seen as maybe a solution 25 years ago. On second thought, it's not. It's not a good solution at all. Although some people will argue it for aviation fuel in the meantime, before we have something else to take over. Surge in EV adoption in Turkey. EVs are up 128% in 2025.
Yeah.
To reach an 18% share. We talk about figures of, 10%, 20%, 28%, but not 128%. It's a fast uptake, Turkey. China's battery energy storage capacity is now above 100 gigawatts. Wow, that's gigawatts of the nuclear reactor. That's up 110% since last year. And guess what? It's surpassing hydro. They've got a lot of hydro. So the batteries are more than the hydro in China. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, well, they have the Three Gorges Dam, amongst other things, the largest hydroelectric dam in the world, and they now have battery storage that's more than that.
CS Fast Fact for you again. In 2022, the average Chinese citizen ate almost 18 times as much meat as their equivalent in 1962.
Interesting.
And yet, meat is a climate problem. And it's also, an animal rights problem if you're that type of person. The average lease rate for a new car in the United States, including a down payment, is now cheaper for an EV than for a gas car. So screw you people who say EVs are too expensive. And Brian, speaking of meat, Beyond Meat is rebranding as Beyond. The company's strategic pivot is meant to underscore its clean plant protein bona fides and to get investors and consumers back on board after meat lobby advocacy. The meat people freaked out whenever there's competition to an existing thing, even if it's bad for the planet. They start doing bad things, including disinformation campaigns, which painted the sector as ultra-processed and unhealthy. Beyond Meat and those similar, the other one, what's it called?
Impossible meats. Maybe not sell yourself as a meat. Maybe sell yourself as a protein-based or a plant-based patty or something. Yeah.
And that'll, stop the meat lobby anyway. I don't know. But they've had hard times because of COVID hit and inflation went up and then people were saving their money. They didn't want to pay an extra $1 for a Beyond Meat burger, which are sometimes at parity and sometimes not at price parity. The Netherlands generated 35.7% of its electricity last month from solar.
That's a lot.
This is a country with worse solar potential than where you and I live in the province of Saskatchewan. Okay? A panel here will generate 1.4 times the amount of electricity, the same panel in the Netherlands over a course of a year. And guess what our percentage of electricity from solar is? It's not even hit 1%. It's a dream that I could see the 1% one day of solar. And it's ignorance. It's petrostate freaking ignorance. And it's going to cost us money. And it's going to cost the world lives. Finally this week, a Tesla owner from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, posted on the Tesla High Mileage Club on Facebook, and I had to share it with our listeners. Canada's a big country, but most of us are all within, an hour of the U.S. border. We're all down south for good reason. Tends to be warmer down south than it is up north. And that's just how the country unfolded. But if you ever wondered if an EV can make it to the Northern Territories in Canada, yes, they can. Now, the Northern Territories are what? The Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut.
Yes.
There is barely a small town of people between all those places. Or, it's like 50,000, 60, I don't know what it is, but it's not that many people. And this vast amount of land that is there. So, of course, you would say, there's no EV chargers up there, James. There's no people. Vast land, frigid, cold. barely trees in some places once you get far up north to the Arctic. But yes, they can, he says, because he did it. In the Yukon and the Northwest Territories, they all have free 50 kilowatt flow chargers every 150 kilometers on all major highways.
That's amazing.
Free. Just to have them every 150 kilometers would be righteous greatness in my mind. But in British Columbia, on the way there from Alberta, same story. You had to go through northern British Columbia to get there, except it's 36 cents per kilowatt, as it is every place in BC. It's 36 cents per kilowatt hour. Even Teslas are that cheap. And this is what pisses me off about Saskatchewan, Brian, because that charger in Davidson, 85 cents a kilowatt hour, because our fossil fuel happy grid, which charges our retail customers 15 to 20% more than BC on average, let's say. Well, it's 2.3 times the amount of money for charging, because they don't give an F about charging. They don't care about, things that aren't fossil fuels. But that's beside the point. And I'm angry about that. But in British Columbia, just 36 cents, which is cheap. It's really good price to charge your car. You could probably do it for $15 or $20 to fill it up. 25 at most if you're driving a bigger vehicle. They even have propane-powered 50 kilowatt chargers in the far north just to have coverage, because there's no power grid everywhere. That's one of the challenges. So they have a little propane. I tried to put a picture of it here. It's there. There's little solar panels on. There's probably a battery in there, and there's probably a propane generator that charges up the battery as necessary, but it's not used that much, I don't imagine. So, but at least it's there, and they make it possible to drive up there. And I'd love to do that someday. It'd be a challenge, but the charging wouldn't be. Ironically, it would be finding hotels and dealing with mosquitoes. They said, I have some charging costs, as there's next to no Tesla network up there, because they're driving a high mileage Tesla. And it's almost entirely hydropower, except between BC and the Yukon, and there's some remote generating stations to cover it. This car of his, this Tesla Model S, I believe, is 740,000 kilometers on the odometer.
Wow.
So, yeah, the batteries on these things don't last more than 2 years. Well, no, don't listen to your family members at Thanksgiving. They're wrong. Highly recommended for the scenic views and the chill drive. We went to eat while charging most places, and they would say, be sure to get gas before leaving. It's always a long way between the stations for gas. And we would reply, no need. We are driving electric, and there's lots of charging along the way. And they would look so confused, as I imagine they would. But perception is not what it is. It's completely different usually. And that is amazing that you can go there. Talk about Saskatchewan being a remote, sparsely populated place. That's really sparsely populated, and they got it covered. It shows that it can be done if you have an urge to do something.
I have always wanted to visit the Northwest Territories, and that is wild that I could drive there in an electric car. And maybe I'll do that someday. All right, that's our show. You can contact us, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. On social media, we're Clean Energy Pod, and our Patreon is patreon.com/cleanenergypod. And of course, we have a merch store if you want to buy a t-shirt or hat or something like that. And always remember to press the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app, and you will get new episodes every week.
And give us a review. We'll read them one day, and it helps our show if you give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to us. Thank you to all of our Patreon members, especially and always Clean Club executive members Green Bastard and Brett Rowley. Shout out to our newest Clean Club member, H. So that's going to be easy to say when I give the shout outs to...
Yeah.
If you're efficient, somebody one day is going to come up with a really long name or a complicated name. But H I can get through. Judicial. Oh, there, I said it. I finally said it. Now I have to edit that in to earlier. Thank you to all of you for supporting our climate positive content. We'll see you again in 7 days.
See you next week.